Welcome to episode 28 of Real Talk with a Vulnerable Angel and Friends. I am your host, the Vulnerable Angel, Dominica May, and I'm not wearing my usual white angel outfit today because I was wearing this top earlier today, and I'm like, I want to keep this for the live stream tonight. It feels, I don't know, somewhat appropriate for this week's topic, which is body count mentality. And my guests are my usual guests, Mike and Sharon. Welcome, guys.
Well,
Hello.
welcome back, everyone.
Hello.
Good to see you as always.
I have a bowl of popcorn that I'm going to
Oh,
still
gosh.
on. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, such a treat.
I just finished a bowl of noodles, so there you go.
You want to trade bowls?
Sure.
There you go.
There you go. There you.
Oh, look at that.
Lovely.
We did it again. If this is your first time tuning into one of our shows, what we do is we just have like deep, vulnerable conversations live about topics that people, feel like they might avoid more often. We like to discuss the difficult subjects, right?
Like, how many sticks of butter can I fit in my mouth at the same time?
Yeah, that might be a challenge. So this week's topic, body count mentality, came about because I did some stand-up about a week and a half ago. And during this stand-up set, I was talking about body count because I think it's a silly concept in general. But the gist of the joke was like, I haven't slept with anyone new since 2016 because my body doesn't want me to increase my body count. And I posted the clip to various channels and stuff. But on TikTok, there was the kinds of responses I get on TikTok are all from the kinds of guys that hate women pretty much. And so I had one response that was actually filtered by TikTok, but I improved it because I was so amused by this comment. But it taught me something new. And so this guy is basically telling me that sleeping with exes, because this is my excuse, I can only sleep with exes because then it doesn't increase my body count. And so he's like, sleeping with exes still increases your body count if those people are sleeping with other people. I'm like, what? There are guys that think this way? Like, the more people that you sleep with who have slept with other people, does that what means that you are sleeping with all of the people that they've slept with as well? And all, what kind of idea is this? Like, it seems crazy to me.
A person who is, as you say, hates women. Or has small
D energy.
Yes, thank you. Small D energy. And has something to prove, and thereby, wait, what just happened to my camera?
I don't know. You're
fiddling
with it.
Chewing on the cord.
Oh my goodness.
Stop. Oh, jeez.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway.
Small D energy, yeah.
USB accessories disabled. Thanks a lot, you jerk. Anyway. Yeah, just people who have something to prove and become contrarians just because they can be. People who are looking to argue with someone, so they create arguments out of nowhere based on nothing. And they just want to be assholes. Just to ruin someone else's day.
Yeah, I feel like that's the majority of the people that I see commenting on my TikTok reels. But still, like, it seems to be, not that I pay a much mind to these kinds of people on the internet, but it does seem to be that there are people who put a lot of stock into body count. So I'm like, you know what? This is going to be an interesting topic to discuss on the live stream this week. So that's what we're going with. All right. And I do have a bunch of questions for us to discuss. And our questions come from ChatGPT, but I picked the topic this time at least. All right, our first question is, how did you first learn that sexual body count was something people judged or valued?
I don't remember exactly how. So the term body count, I didn't even know was a term within like the sexual realm. For me, like body count is how many people have you killed?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And I didn't know that it was ever put into sexual connotations until 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It wasn't very long ago that I only learned of this term. And it was like right before I met my wife. Like somebody had brought it up to me and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like murdering your
partners?
What are you talking about?
You're a
You're like,
praying
no.
mantis. It's all for the praying mantises, right?
So I think it was just like this casual, like through learning what a body count meant. That I think that's when I started to realize some people actually value, like there's an inherent understanding that you know that this is something that is valued or judged by people just from the sheer fact that it has a term.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's the best answer I can give.
No, that's good. How about you, Shard? When did you first learn about the term? And
I think similar to Mike, it happened a few years ago, but it's really interesting because I think there's an interesting dichotomy between how it affects both men and women.
Oh, yes. Save that part for there's a question about that later.
Yeah. But yeah, like it was really weird because I remember like a few years ago, like someone like we were at a pub, I think, and someone was just like, yeah, like, so body counts, how many are we talking about? And I was like, as far as I know, I haven't killed anyone. As far as I know. So yeah, so I mean, it's very strange. I mean, to be fair, the lingo in society is always changing, isn't it? So you're learning something new every day.
Yeah. I feel like that it's become more common vernacular in the lexicon in the last maybe decade, or maybe even more recently than that. I don't know when it was actually coined for that specific term. And Lego Timmy is in the chat. Hi, Timmy. Welcome.
Timmy.
We'll get to your comments after I finish this question. I'm pretty sure I knew that this was a thing that people judged and valued before I had heard the term, though. And I think probably being a woman makes it an extra difference to it, because I feel like I'm probably going to be more likely to be judged for it than what men are. So that makes sense. Unless you're a man who is part of that, grouping of people who cares about body count that women have. But yeah, like for me, I think even quite young, I probably knew that this was something that could potentially have people judging me for if I was a quote unquote slut. And we are not going to discuss numbers or anything tonight. But I mean, unless anyone wants to, but I'm not going to push any topics with that. I just feel like that's one of the reasons that I have been reluctant to sleep around, because of knowing that it's something that some people value and judge, especially for women.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I'll bring. Let's go. Timmy's got a couple of comments here. So he says, Someone today on my live stream donated $70 that I was in shock. That's amazing.
Congratulations, man.
That's huge.
Well done.
Congratulations.
In the years that I have been producing YouTube videos, not one person has ever donated to my channel.
Not yet.
I don't have enough subscribers for anything to have that. Maybe I should put like a PayPal donation thing on my channel. I know.
Like,
anyway.
I don't say that as a means of like, oh, poor is me, but like that is a major accomplishment.
Yeah, good for you.
At a point where people are actually giving you large sums of money. Congrats.
You can buy a decent Lego set with $70 for sure. Me spitting off the excitement of that. All right, our next question is part of this question was written by ChatGPT, and then I added the second part of this question myself. So what assumptions do you think people make based on someone's number of past partners, and have you ever been judged or judged someone for their number?
I'm going to address the second part of the question first. Have I ever been judged, or have I ever judged someone else for their number? Like I said, this is something that I've only fairly recently found out about or learned that it's a thing. I have not discussed numbers with anyone. No one has ever really discussed in any meaningful kind of a way their numbers with me. We live in a world where we're kind of starting to move out of it, or we've been moving out of it, but we used to live in a world where women aren't allowed to be anything but virgins, and men need to have the most amount of experience humanly possible. Like if you can pass the 100, 200, 500 threshold, then you are quote unquote the man, whatever the fuck that means. So what assumptions do I make based, and I'm going to alter this question ever so slightly.
Do you think people make, so it's not even necessarily you?
Oh, yeah. What assumptions do I think that people make based on bragging about their numbers? Everyone's got a number. Even if it's 0, everyone has a number. And there's nothing wrong with that number. But if you're the kind of person that feels the need to brag about it, fuck you. It doesn't matter what the number is. Even if the number is 0 and you're bragging about the fact that, oh, I'm a virgin. Meh, fuck you.
Yeah.
The number of people you fuck with is completely arbitrary. It has nothing to do with anyone. You're not better than me, and I'm not better than you. So slow your roll.
That's a really good point. The fact that you mentioned people with the 0 body count and they still keep on yapping about it. That's really interesting because, like I remember being in bars and both men and women, and like I can actually picture 2 people who were like, yeah, man, like virgin, doesn't interest me, blah blah, but they kept on advertising it without being asked. Right. And I was like, I'm holding my drink, like, dude, I just got here. Like,
so what's the point of that? What assumptions are you making about that person for the fact that they are bragging about that? Then
I think it's to flex about like their self-control and like, listen, I'm not a slave to my thing. I beat to my own drum. I'm like, you're beating something, and so it's I don't know. It's a very strange flex.
It's a flex. That's exactly what it is. It's a flex.
Yeah.
And it's not a good look.
No matter what the number is,
No matter what the number is,
which is one reason why we do not need to bring up what our numbers are on this stream, because we don't want to flex.
It doesn't make any difference.
No, it doesn't
make any difference.
I agree. For me, I've definitely been judged on my number. I'm pretty sure I've talked about this on the stream.
Well, I've never been judged, so neener, pumpkin eater, I'm better than you.
Probably because you are a man, but we will get to that question next. Yeah, like I even if I haven't, I'm pretty sure I've discussed this on the live stream, but even if I haven't, I discussed it in my stand-up routine that I was talking about in the beginning of this. So if you want to check it out, I will link that in the description later on after the stream as well. But my ex-husband totally wished that he could have taken my virginity. And he was still only my third partner. So I didn't have a huge amount of experience, but he was still like, and then I feel like it got to a point where, because we were polyamorous, it was more like I felt like I was being judged for not sleeping with more people later on, for choosing not to.
Right.
And yeah, and I don't know. I don't think I've brought up my number with very many people. Like, I don't think I've gotten that specific, and it reached a point where I stopped keeping track. So I'm like, because I don't care. Not that it's a huge amount anyway, but I'm just like, it doesn't matter. But what assumptions do I think that people make based on someone's number of past partners? Absolutely, I think people judge for. I mean, there are definitely guys who feel very sensitive to the fact that they're virgins sometimes. So even though you guys were talking about people flexing that they hadn't had any partners, my assumptions about it is, especially from like movies and stuff, the assumption is more like, if you haven't had any sexual partners and you're a man, then you are a dud because you haven't been able to land a woman. Like, that's an assumption that a lot of people make, which also isn't true. Maybe it is more of the, I would rather wait for the right person. And
I need to point out, there is truth to that. Being a dud, having a 0 body count, sometimes that does mean that you are a dud.
Sometimes it does, yes, but it doesn't automatically. It doesn't automatically mean that's true. Yeah.
I'll be back in 2 seconds, guys.
No worries. Sharon has to go feed that puppy. Yeah. So I feel like that is more where guys are judged, is if the body count is lower rather than higher.
Right.
But for women, it's more, people are going to make more assumptions if your body count is too high, then you're a slut, or you don't know how to keep your clothes on, or who knows what. But it doesn't matter whether they are or not. Like, it's their body, their choice. They can do what they want with it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's those are the assumptions that I think people make. Have I ever judged someone for their number? I don't think I have. I mean, I lost my virginity to someone who I'm pretty sure we had a conversation about him having 50 or so partners before me. So clearly I didn't care about that. But I, for the most part, I don't think I've really discussed specific numbers with very many of my ex-partners in general anyway. So, yep, that's where I'm at. All right, let's bring up some more of the chat comments here, even though we're not like on on topic. But Lego Timmy wants to know what your channel is.
Oh, thanks for asking. Oh boy, what channel? I've had many. So during the pandemic, I really tried to make a move towards being a professional entertainer. I've never been able to break the semi-professional. Let me change that. I am a professional. I am not full-time. So I tried to make it full-time. So the YouTube channel, I talked movies. I did movie reviews. We talked upcoming movie news. What's coming out? What do I think about? Excuse me, too much popcorn. Stuff like that, right? I produced anywhere between 4 and 9 videos a day. So it was like a 2-3 hour video that I would chop up into smaller segments and then post those videos. So I'd post anywhere between 4 and 9 videos every single day. And I did that for 2 years. I only ever amassed 600 subscribers, and a little over. And I considered that a massive failure. And whether it is or whether it's not, I considered it to be. So,
Mike, I just want to interrupt. That's more successful than I am with this show.
I mean, I was working at it like super hard, but like it felt very defeating, especially when like I had friends who would make like I have this one friend who's an engineer, and he did this bit of engineering on a piece of paper where he showed his work, and he goes, in theory, blah 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 blah, this would work. And it was like a 45-minute video, and it hit 21,000 views like overnight. And then it's amassed to well over something like 5 million views in its lifetime. And I'm like, how the fuck did you do that? So it was stuff like that I just felt so defeated. So that channel is called Gotta Love Them Movies, GOTTA, Gotta Love Them Movies. But I've got YouTube videos, kind of a dime a dozen. The one that cats, you guys. Cats are just getting into all kinds of shenanigans. Hey, all right. She just hold on one second.
Leave me alone. That's all right. Okay, my dad says, "Congrats, Timmy," and Timmy says, "I'm gonna bring them up." And Timmy says, "I'm super grateful that I have a good community." Dad, I'm not sure what you mean by this. I ate 10 in one sitting. The clue 4 quarts between Denver and Laramie. I was sick after. What does that mean?
I ate 10 in one sitting. 10
Bodies?
10 buckets of popcorn?
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's impressive either way.
I have no idea. And Veritas is also in the chat. Welcome.
Hey!
It's so nice to have so many people watching tonight. Feel free to drop your related questions or comments in the chat.
But to finish up that thought, yes. Pineapple Improv is the YouTube channel that's the extension of my television show. That's the one that I'm putting more effort into right now. So Pineapple Improv. I think there's an underscore in there. I actually don't remember.
You can find out. I can link it in the description later on. You should be able to do that. All right. Next question.
Next question.
Dad, if you left another first comment, it didn't show up for me. So maybe it got spam filtered. All right, next question. Since we were already briefly touching on this topic anyway, how does the concept of body count impact men differently than women in your experience or observation?
It doesn't. Moving on.
No,
it totally does. I've gone first the past few questions. Would anyone else like to take the lead on this?
Dominique, would you like to?
Sure. I mean, I already kind of touched on this with the differences in terms of if your body count is 0, it impacts women as in a more favorable light than it does for men, and vice versa. If the number is on the higher end of the scale, then it impacts women in a more negative light than it does men. you know, I might kind of touch on this earlier on as well with, you know, just the idea that men need to have all of this sexual experience and women need to have, you know, be complete virgins and stuff. Like, how is anyone supposed to, like, that? It's so incongruous. Like, you can't make that work. Like,
it cancels each other out, doesn't it?
It's impossible. Like, if all women are supposed to be virgins, but all men are supposed, like, unless your body count is you're sleeping with, like, the men are sleeping with all the other men, right? Then that's the only way that it can work, right? But then it's not the kind of experience that is intended by that high body count, right? Like, so yeah, that's the biggest aspect, I think. And I think that means that for people that care about body count, I think that means that if they feel like they have to share their number, a woman might lower her number, whereas a man might increase his number. To make it seem more acceptable, right, to the people who care about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sharon?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think you guys pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Like, like the fact if a man has lower body count, is kind of mocked in his own social circles amongst his peers, isn't he? They're like, like I actually remember, like, when I was at a pub, someone mentioned, like, I've only been with one person. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And they immediately assumed, they were like, why are you making fun of him? I'm like, I'm not. That's awesome. You know, and they're like, oh, okay. But like, yeah, like it's very, very much so a different kind of thing where men are seen as less of, you know, and women, in my experience, whenever they have higher body counts, they don't get slut shamed per se, in my experience, but they will be said, oh, if some guy's having a problem, could we send her his way? You know, like
yeah, the local bike per se. That's how it was framed when I was in Australia. Did you guys, or did you hear that term?
Bike.
Everyone's had a ride.
Yeah. I don't always know, like, what are the global terms for things versus local. Like,
also, context clues help.
Yeah.
I think age comes into play in this a lot as well. Because, like, when you're younger, you don't have a lot of opportunity to score a high body count. So there's this false equivalency of quality versus quantity. So, like, I'm literally looking at an action figure of Wonder Woman. So let's just use Wonder Woman as an example. If you're in high school and Wonder Woman is in your graduating class, everyone looks at Wonder Woman and being like, "Oh, she's the unicorn. Ooh, who's gonna get Wonder Woman, so to speak," right? So your body count can be relatively low, but if you're currently dating, how about Megan?
A robot.
Yeah, if you're dating Megan, you're probably not going to be viewed as highly as the person who is dating Wonder Woman.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's that, like, there's a quality versus quantity aspect to it as well. Now, the quality aspect tends to decrease and go away, not just over time, but pretty quickly. Once you get to college, there's still a little bit of that in college, but then, like, once you're out of college, nobody really cares. Like there's nobody's talking about the quality of the people that you're with or the superficial beauty of the person that you're with, and that could go male or female, whether heterosexual or or non-heteronormative. There's like it spans the whole gamut, right? So, yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
you make some excellent points there.
Mm.
The age thing definitely makes a difference. I do think college age generally seems to be the age group that cares more about that sort of thing. And if you're older and still care about it, it means that you haven't really grown up. You still have that same kind of mindset, right? Yeah. All right, we have a few more comments in the chat, so I will bring them up. Okay, hang on. Scroll. Okay, Timmy says, it's nice of you to refer to me as so many people. Timmy, oh, sorry, Veritas. Veritas, you're not the only person in the chat. My dad is here, and we've had Lego Timmy as well. So that's,
compared to other streams.
Yeah.
Both Restream and YouTube have been saying that I've got 3 viewers. YouTube right now is saying I have 5. So
dope.
That's a lot of those people are probably going to leave soon. They're just tuning in
for
a brief look.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Anyway, okay. Veritas says, yeah, what are we talking about? Yes, body count mentality. But Veritas also says, Veritas disagrees with our gender assumptions on body count. He says, women are sexually desired by default. There is effort needed or value gained by attaining sex. Most men are not desired and need to earn sexual access. Men gain value, women protect it.
Interesting.
What do you guys think about that?
Men gain value, women protect it.
That's really interesting. Huh.
Most men are not desired.
I disagree. I don't think women are sexually desired by default. Going by my own experience, I've had plenty of experience where I've not been seen as sexually desirable by men. So I don't think it's a default setting. I've been rejected and turned down plenty of times.
From a male point of view, I get what Veritas is saying.
Yeah.
Because there is this idea that let me go back to the movie Aladdin, right? Where Aladdin is or rather the King Sultan is arguing with Jafar over who should take Jasmine's hand. And of course, not Aladdin, but Prince Ali is there, right?
Ali Ababwa.
Ali Ababwa. And so Jasmine overhears this whole conversation about her and who should be able to get her, right? To which Jasmine storms out of the room, and I can't remember exactly what she says, but the last line of dialogue is, "I am not a prize to be won."
Yes.
And while I agree with that, that is true, there is a perception that isn't true, that women actually are a prize to be won.
I think this idea about earning sexual access, I think there are parts where a guy will value a woman more if he has to put effort in to earn that access, whereas if he can get it easily with someone, with a woman who is maybe more sexually open, then there's this perception of less value because they didn't have to do anything to quote unquote earn it. I feel like that's something that I don't know how to really elaborate on that. Do you guys understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I understand.
I'm not sure I do, but also
maybe you I don't know, what has been your experience with feeling like you have to earn versus or have you felt like you wanted to earn?
I grew up with the Zorro mentality, right? The Florence Nightingale effect. I grew up with this whole idea that in order to get a girl to like you, you had to save her in some capacity. And vis-a-vis, that would become the access point to, as Beavis and Butthead put it, score.
That's dope.
Okay, so then if you, let's say, I'm not saying that this has ever happened in your life, but if you had an experience where you didn't have to, jump through those kinds of hoops to quote unquote earn sexual access, would you see that situation differently than someone that you did?
And we're taking religious guilt out of this.
Sure. Or if you feel like it makes a difference, I'm actually curious to see.
Religious guilt made all the difference. There's a reason I didn't give up my virginity until I was 27. And it was just that. So when I first discovered masturbation, I know we're getting like way off topic, but when I first discovered masturbation, I understood that that's what I was doing, because I didn't realize that they were one and the same. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When I realized that that's what I was doing, I was trained, or rather I was groomed to believe that what I was doing was one of the most vile, inhumane, disgusting, perverted, wrong, shameful things that I could do. And I remember being on my knees night after night after night, just praying for forgiveness and like asking God, take this away from me. Take my sexuality away from me. I don't want to deal with it. I'm doing something wrong. I can't overcome this. And I did that for years. 4 years. So for someone in my position, that religious guilt plays such a fucking epic part in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's, for someone like me, it's hard to disassociate one from the other, because my motivations of retaining a purity, my motivations for holding on to my V card were fear-based. I felt like I was a bad person because I had a libido.
Damn.
Yeah, I definitely had that experience as well. Same religious guilt upbringing, and this is actually one of the pieces behind my joke in my stand-up. I'm revealing all of the information about my stand-up before people have actually watched it. But I talk about it being impacted by being raised Catholic. And I still feel like that today. So like this idea that Veritas is saying about women protecting their value, I have to say that part of where I am right now, I do think that's a part of why I'm abstaining, because in my mind, with that kind of upbringing, it's like I hold more value if I don't sleep around. And I only, hold it for very specific people that I care about a lot. And now it's at the point where like, it needs to be a serious relationship. I'm not going to just, bed anyone. And I've certainly had opportunities. I'm just like, nope, I'm not there right now.
I also appreciate the way Veritas constructed this comment, because inherently, in and of itself, there is no judgment. the way he phrased everything is just very matter of fact.
Mm.
Women are sexually desired by default.
Good on you. Yeah.
I think there is. Now, I understand, Dominica, that you may disagree with this. I do think that there is a lot of truth there. I mean, how many Renaissance sculptors and painters have painted naked women as opposed to naked men? I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I do know that it definitely skews naked women much higher than naked men.
Sure. But I mean, I think there's an aspect of, stereotypical beauty to that. And that's mainly what I'm saying. Like, there are certain women who do not get that kind of attention that the more stereotypically beautiful women do.
Yes, there 100% there are, but I do feel
that was my only argument. In general, yes.
Well, I mean, like, sorry, if you think about it, even if you go back historically, when you think of things like Michelangelo's David, for example, like the statue, right? It's this young guy who's in his physical prime, but he's very, very relaxed. But let's be honest, he's if you've seen the statue, which I'm sure our viewers have, he doesn't exactly he's not packing, right? He's thinking of mother, put it that way. And but like that's the definitive male form. Whereas if you look in the female side, she has to have usually long hair, like quite well endowed. Yeah, so it's a very, very tricky thing.
Look, I'm doing the whole cleavage thing today just for this topic.
Not complaining. Get those numbers up, rookie numbers, get them up.
But I'm still protecting the down there part.
I mean, this might be in the red tube pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. All right. Veritas did actually correct himself. There was no effort in that part. Next comment from Veritas: men and women evaluate value differently. I agree with that. If a man pulls a hot woman, it makes him more desirable to other women. Men don't think like that typically, but both sides can lose value by sexing down. Interesting. I want to touch on I want to comment on the first part first. If a man pulls a hot woman, it makes him more desirable to other women. I don't think the woman has to be hot necessarily. In my experience, I have been more attracted to men just knowing that they are desired by other women, whether or not they're attractive.
I will say there is something to that though, where like, and let me just use the Megan and Wonder Woman example here, right? So, if who am I looking at? Toucan Sam. If Toucan Sam, I don't know, like all I have are toy and cereal references. If Toucan Sam is dating Wonder Woman, then Megan, or Mithridian.
I'll be back in a little bit.
All right. Megan is probably looking at that guy going, I'm a Megan. I'm not a Wonder Woman. That guy is out of my league. Or there is, maybe he might not be out of Megan's league, but there is a hierarchy. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Is that one R or two? Is that hierarchy?
It's higher. There's an R there. Archy. So AR. It's like an R before and after the A. Hierarchy.
Yeah, but there is a hierarchy to the status of looks, right? Mm-hmm. And some people assign numbers to it. Some people put like verbal categories in it. Call it whatever you want. There is some sort of like a beauty hierarchy, for lack of a better term. and someone who is, let me just use colloquial terms because we all understand the number sequence. Someone who's a 4 is looking at this woman who's a 10 and notices that the guy who's probably a 7 landed a 10. And now all of a sudden, just because he was able to get someone who, through perceived rankings and their own, because everyone's rankings are different.
Yeah.
But through Megan's perceived rankings, he probably jumps from a 7 up to a 9, making that perceived gap between them that much greater. But of course, it's not just about like sexual desire and oozing. It's about the person. How are you going to, well, not always. Some people, it's all about the superficial, you have to look and act like in a certain way, and that's how you're attractive to me. But I would say for the majority of us, we need that who you are as an individual. That's what's attractive.
Oh, yeah. But same. Yeah.
We're not talking about personal feelings. We're talking.
Looks are like so much lower on the rung for me of the things that I care about, like personality, sense of humor, those kinds of things. So, like, are you a kind person? Those are the kinds of things that mattered most to me for whether I perceive them as having value. Consistency. Are you consistent? Do you do what you say?
You remember the movie Shallow Hal?
Yeah, I think we talked about it like on like the rom-com stream that we did.
Oh, briefly. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That movie messed me up because I didn't pay attention to the bigger message of the movie. I just paid attention to the first half of the movie of like, looks are everything. You have to swing for the fences. You can't settle. And I just, yeah, that put the wrong message.
You got the wrong message from that film.
Inadvertently.
That's interesting. I don't know about this sexing down thing though. Have I feel like I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
Well, of course. So let's just go back to the same example. So you have Toucan Sam, who's a 7, and he starts dating Megan, who's a 4. Wonder Woman, who's a 10, is going to look at Toucan Sam and be like, you could have been with me, but you chose that skank. Megan, you just sexed down, and there's no chance for you to get back up to where I'm at. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if I've been in the position of sexing down or not, but whatever. But I can see where you're coming from with that. Like, I feel like my ex-husband's value has gone down because of choices that he's made. Anyway, moving on. next comment from Veritas. No, it's fine. The difference is, while men might have less desire for a woman who sucked off a crackhead weirdo, they will still get in line because, hey, we still want to bang. I think it depends on the man. Yeah, I don't think all men are as slutty as society frames them as. That's what I would say. Like, just because the opportunity is there doesn't mean that they will take it. And I say this as someone who has offered my body to men who have rejected it.
I do think there's a lot of truth in this, but I also think that there are a lot of specific circumstances that come along with it. And if we're using single single guys as our constant. People, I mean, there has to be another part of the constant of like, what is it? What's the most basic value that a person can have, that a man can have, as opposed to just being single, or not value, but what's the criteria, you know? So like someone who was raised in an ultra religious home, like what I was, I wouldn't get in line to bang anyone, even though I still wanted to. And I came so fucking close on so many occasions, to the point that I actually had to ask people to get out of the bed because it got too close. So, but then again, you also have the other side of that coin, is that you have the religious crazy people who use religion as their shield, and they do whatever it is that they want, and they say, "Oh, well, I'm okay. I broke the law, or not broke the law, but like I broke God's law, but it's okay because I'm a real Christian."
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
You're not a real Christian, but I am, because my pastor said that I am, right?
Even though I haven't confessed all of these sins to people, to my priest or pastor or whatever.
While I definitely agree with what Veritas is saying, I think there are other stipulations that need to be accounted for, as opposed to making just one big giant sweeping
blanket statement. Yeah.
Blanket statement. Thank you.
All right, my dad has corrected his earlier comment that we missed the start of. He said I was mixed Mike's early joke with old youth challenges instead of bodies. Drinking a McDonald's drink with 20 straws, 10 standard McDonald's hamburgers in one sitting, drinking 4 quarts of soda in. Hang on, let me see the next part of that. I hope it's there. Okay. 4 quarts of soda in front of art club people. My numbers are fake in order to avoid talking about my sexual experiences in front of in front of me. Not Numbo. He doesn't. Yeah. Dad, I'm pretty sure your numbers are you've only slept with one person besides my mum. I'm pretty sure you shared that with me before.
Hey, we're not talking numbers.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm not talking my numbers, I'm talking my dad's numbers. I apologize, Dad. Whoops. I wonder if that is where I got this idea of body count from in the beginning, of like it being a big deal because of how my parents kind of framed that stuff, though. Hang on, let me.
What do you mean?
Because of being raised Catholic, right? I know my dad was my mum's only sexual partner, as far as I know. I don't think she was with anyone else after him. And my dad not often, but occasionally talked about how he regretted having a partner before my mum. And so I wonder if that is why in my mind, the whole idea of body count, even before that term, crossed my path, was something that I was aware of that innately had value or was judged because of how my parents were and what I knew about my parents.
So that was something that I never even stopped to consider about my own parents when I was younger. I never thought about it. I knew that my parents had like dated other people, but to me, dating was just smooching on the lips. I never, like, my brain never went beyond that, right? And then when I became a Mormon missionary, the whole analogy of trying on a glove before you buy it, I understood the analogy and it made so much sense to me. But of course, my religious upbringing told me I needed to find a reason to discredit that analogy. But it makes perfect sense. Like, why would you buy a glove without trying it on? You know? And I understand that's kind of a gross analogy. I get it. But it made and it still makes perfect sense to me.
No, absolutely. I mean, I just started today watching a series on Peacock called Laid.
It's so good
with Stephanie Sue, and I've only watched the first 2 episodes so far. But like in the early on, I'm pretty sure this is the thing that I was watching that this happened in.
You know, it got canceled, right?
Huh? It's fine.
Okay, so like by the time you get to the end, you're not okay.
Okay, I did not look into it, but okay. So like, you know, Stephanie Sue's character Ruby is on a 3rd date with someone, and then they go to bed together, and they both agree that it is awful. And then so she's just like, yeah, no, I'm out. So that's where my mind went with that, is like the trying on stuff. Like, yeah, because like you might have chemistry with someone, like with the conversation aspect, but then you know, sometimes it might take a while to get into it, and some people don't want to wait to figure that out. Right?
Yeah. It's you know, kind of going back to the glove analogy for a moment. A glove is not a glove. It's not like, okay, a glove is a glove, but not all gloves are created equally. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you want a leather glove. Sometimes you want a fuzzy glove. Sometimes you want a mitten. Sometimes you want a glove with the fingers cut off. Like, there are so many different types of gloves.
I have gardening gloves that I use for not even gardening. I put my gardening gloves to take out my trash, which I did earlier today. Well, but I also have dusting gloves to dust.
There are so many different types of gloves. How do you know if you feel like you indeed are going to be monogamous?
Yeah.
Which glove do you buy?
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have any experience with it first, you're going to test it out.
And I mean, not for nothing, I'm just saying Utah has the highest divorce rate in the United States.
Not making any, casting any assumptions there. Not talking about the high Mormon population and religious upbringings. What did you say? Yes, I am.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Just saying.
All right. Bring up Veritas's next comment here. The reality is you could have sex tonight if you wanted. Most men cannot. You could go into a bar and make yourself available and would have many takers. Maybe you have been rejected by those you want, but most men have sex with women they don't want other than for sex. Yep. And I agree with that. Look, I have 2 men in the city that I live in right now who would absolutely go to bed with me if I asked them to, I'm pretty sure. And I have chosen not to because I don't want to be valued just in a sexual way. I want to have the whole relationship thing. So even though I know that there are men that I could go to bed with just to get my rocks off, locally, like I wouldn't have to travel for my the men that I want to be with. Usually it does require more effort, which is why I have traveled specifically to be with specific men, because you know, there are things that I value more than just that sexual interest part.
But yes, by and large, if a lady wants it, she gonna get it.
Yeah.
By and large.
So this is my current situation. It has not always been this way, and I don't think that necessarily all the times in the past it would have been as easy for me to go out and land someone to have sex with, just because I happen to know that there are a couple of guys that I could right now if I wanted to. Doesn't mean it's always been the case. All right. Then Veritas also says a man has to be hot or have money or be charming or have some form of value to get sexual access from women, because women are the gatekeepers to sex. Women just have to exist and can find sex. I think we've kind of touched on this, Veritas, in one of our other streams as well. Yeah, I'm glad that you listed a bunch of different potential things that a man has to have or be, because
sometimes it doesn't, even just having one of those qualities isn't enough. You need to have multiple of those qualities.
Yeah, sometimes. But like, other times,
just and rich, that's more than enough. Or you could be charming, or have some value. You could be ugly as fuck, and have money, and you're actually kind of a good personality. I mean, there's infinite combos.
Yeah. So I do, for the most part, agree with that. I think that a man who doesn't have anything to offer a woman is going to have a very hard time having sex with anyone.
Otherwise, they're known as fucking creepers.
Creepers or incels, self-identified incels, the involuntary celibate. Involuntarily celibate. Yeah. Involuntarily celibate. Self-identified. I know this term primarily because my ex-husband taught it to me, because he related to that subgroup of people even when he was getting a lot of sex. So, yeah. Okay, my dad says naked women makes more money than advertising than naked men. Yep. I don't think that needs to be discussed further than that. That's pretty straightforward.
True.
Veritas says, I think men are more prone to not try for women they deem above them in the sexual hierarchy. Women still have sexual access to men above them, as men sex down more readily.
Oh yeah, it's easier for a guy to sex down, I think. Yeah. I think it's much more difficult for a guy to sex up.
Yeah.
Easier for a woman to sex up than it is for a woman to sex down. I think the reverse.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good generalization. Yeah. I feel like the idea that men are more prone to not try for women they deem above them in the sexual hierarchy, that makes a lot of sense. And my experience with a lot of the partners that I've had has been that they see me as higher above them, and that has made them more hesitant to make a move on me. Well, and I've had to be the one that has been making the move in those situations before they felt brave enough.
Tal Bachman wrote a whole song about it. 'Cause she's so high, high above me.
She's so lovely. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, didn't know who the singer was, but I do know the song. Yeah. So I guess technically that means I sexed down if the guys that I have been with put me higher up than them. I see them as at my level, but I can see why they might see me as a higher value than them, I suppose. Especially after we split up, and then I'm like, yeah, okay, you were right about that. generally been my reaction afterwards. Like, well, if you couldn't keep me, then I guess I really was worth more than you. All right. Veritas also says, so they are far more successful sexing up. But women are far more successful sexing up. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
And my dad says, mixing Mike's early joke. Oh, that was the correction for...
Was that about the butter? When I was like,
yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it could have been about that. So my dad says, my apologies, my head not working well. I've been sick this week. It is affecting me today.
I was sick as a dog last week. We were supposed to go to Minneapolis for a friend's daughter's high school graduation party. And I was so just like, yeah, I couldn't do it.
I have a migraine right now, and I've been popping Tylenol since last night. But I'm like, I messaged a friend of mine, one of those aforementioned men who would totally sleep with me if I asked. I was telling him about my migraine or a headache tonight and how I was streaming. And he was like, you could just like not stream. I'm like, no, I can't not stream because it's like the one thing that is consistent in my life that keeps me going right now.
I thought you were going to say, he asked like, well, if you want, I can come over and get rid of that headache for you.
No, he didn't say that, but I did ask him about me wearing this top, and he was like, well, you could also not wear it, like wear nothing. I'm like, I don't think YouTube would allow that.
You never know unless you try, Dominique.
I am not going to get myself banned from YouTube. And I'm also not. Also have no intention of flashing my tits on the internet to the general public. I have to put that preface there because I've certainly sent pictures to people. All right, my dad says it is known about me. I have been fairly open. Perhaps autistic state related to truth. I think that's in response to my revealing my dad's number. He says, in some cases, being too available might freak out some men. It makes them suspicious. They might say, what happened? Why so easy? Is this a trap? Yeah, I think that's an assumption that comes up quite frequently. In certain,
also being too available can come off as being clingy,
clingy, needy, desperate as well. Like guys tend to be put off by desperation.
Women get put off by desperation too.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's across the board. People just get put off by desperation. It's one of the reasons why, like, even when I'm feeling desperate, I'm like struggle so hard to like hold that back inside me.
Bottle it in.
I'm like, I don't want anyone to see how desperate I am. For sure. Right. And then my dad also says some men have strange codes of honor. I gave up interest in dating when I think he's in the process of I think he didn't quite finish that yet, so I'm going to move on to the next question.
We'll come back to it.
We'll come back to that one. Let's see, where are we up to? This one. Okay. Have you ever felt pressure to lie about your number, higher or lower, and what did that feel like if you did?
No. I mean, like I said, I've never really been in a position where it's like, all right, well, hey, let's talk about our numbers. Like I don't think I've ever really been in a conversation where I've revealed mine or others have revealed theirs. But have I felt pressure to lie about that? I'm a unique individual where I don't feel pressured in that kind of a way. I grew up sexually or practicing sexual abstinence. I grew up practicing being sober in all of its forms. So like all that all the things that normal, typical, traditional people do in their lives, I never took part in. And when people would call me on it, it was a point of pride for me of like, I'm good. You do you. I'm good. And in my 20s, that I can't tell you how many people told me, well, I'm going to be the first person to get you drunk.
Yeah. I've definitely had similar. Yeah, I remember for I think my 18th birthday, I did actually. That was the legal age in Australia for drinking, and my high school friends had already been drinking before it was legal to do so. But I went to a stand-up comedy show at the I think it was the Perth Comedy Lounge back then, and I invited a couple of friends from school, and they made sure that I was going to drink alcohol. Like they were obsessed with it. They're just like, gotta get you drunk. So I had a couple of raspberry soda with vodka, I think is what I had. The fact that I can remember that, like 18 was a lot. It's like over 20 years ago. Like that, clearly it was such a distinct memory for me to have. Not that I think about it regularly, but yeah. So when you are like a straight-laced person, people seem to be obsessed with trying to make things different.
Yeah, I think that's the
point. I know, like, one of my exes, he was not known to be someone who really dated at all. Like, so he felt a lot of pressure from our friend group they were all like wanting to help him hook up with people and things like that. So that pressure made him hide and not want to share when he did actually get involved with me, because at that point it's like so much of that pressure is like, let it go. Just let it go. Have I felt any pressure to lie about my number? I don't think so, but that's just because I'm autistic and honest. And so even if I felt like I was being judged for it, I wasn't going to lie about it. What about you, Sharon?
So this is really interesting. I just wanted to bring up a point. I rewatched a classic the other day. Are either you two familiar with The 40-Year-Old Virgin?
Yeah, I rewatched that not that long ago as well.
It breaks my heart that you just called it a classic.
It is a classic. It is a classic. Yeah, I know, right?
Because that's how old we are now.
That's how old we are.
Wait, yeah. Sharon, did you rewatch it because of my brief mention of it in my memoir? Did it remind you?
Yeah, just to remind me. like the bit when they're at the bar and they have to, and Steve Carell's character has to, like, Andy's like, a million women that's like within. They're like, have you ever felt a boob before, dude? And they're like, yeah, you know what it feels like? A bag of sand.
Yes.
And,
yes.
Yeah, and I'm just like, everyone literally just stops and time stands still. And then you start, and then like you still all like, no, your dick is my dick. We're gonna get you laid. That kind of thing. And you see him being mortified. He's on his bike home just screaming, right?
Oh no, absolutely. That is the plot of the film. It was like once they find out he's a virgin, they're obsessed with getting him laid.
Yeah, I mean, like it's very strange because obviously for men, it's actually something that I can relate to, oddly, because when I was in university, we found out that like I think it was during a house party. One of our friends was not just a virgin; he hadn't kissed a girl before, and so we made it our dedicated mission to, like, not get him laid per se, but just to get him there. And I remember like him and this girl disappeared later, and then he came back, and I'll never forget. This is one of the best memories I have. Like, he was like, guys, I kissed her, and I'm not joking. All of us, and there's like 6 rugby guys, right? So we're all big. Put it this way, I was the smallest out of the lot, and this is when I was in really good shape. And we all literally just held hands, no planning, held hands, or formed like a circle around, and started going kumbaya.
Oh my goodness!
it was the most wholesome thing. It was so wholesome. It was great.
I love that it's a wholesome story rather because like normally those kinds of stories it sounds more like obsessive and like rude to some extent to like make a big deal out of it. So
you still haven't answered the question though.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I've actually felt the pressure. When I was younger, we'd always say it's always like maybe you times it by 50% just to make yourself more more appealing. But the older I've gotten, you do kind of want to go low, and I do have to admit when people the last 10 years or so, so what's your body count? I'll just be like 1 or 2. Yeah. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, can't really remember the rest. Because I mean, at this point, it doesn't really.
No, that's fair. That's why I don't keep track, because I'm pretty sure there are some that I barely remember and would like if I had to count them all, I'd be like, was that a situation? But the other thing is, like, how do people define body count? Is it just like who you've had like penetrative sex with, or do you count like oral and other acts? Because some people do.
I feel like most people like the general vernacular or the general definition is full penetration.
Yeah, I know I do because that keeps my number low. But that's why.
Naughty guy.
How many nipples have you seen in person?
Wait, you want me to count now? Like, we were not doing numbers. Plus, people have 2 nipples on their bodies, usually, unless they have more or they had them removed. So,
how many ears have you had your tongue inside of?
0 for me, but I've certainly had at least, I think.
Sorry, that was a rhetorical question.
Oh, okay. I have had tongues in my ears, but I have not had my tongue in somebody else's ears.
I was just playing with my dog, so I definitely, unfortunately, had a tongue in mine. So.
There you go. That's a little bit different.
In a dog's ear.
There you go.
I don't know. For me, I was like, no, but what if they have earwax? Gross.
So last night, I know, again, off topic, my boy cat, Brazos, was on my lap, and he wanted me to scratch his ear, so I did, and then I eventually put my finger in his ear and started scratching around, and you can hear, like, that...
Yeah.
And so I stuck my finger even deeper, and then, like, pulled out, like, all of this gunk, and I was like, wow, where did this come from? And I sniffed it. There was no scent in my earwax at all. It was scentless.
How was he after you pulled it out? Was he just like...
Yeah, he was like, oh, thanks, Dad. Oh, it feels so much better.
I can actually hear.
Meow, meow, meow. Has your dad finished his comment yet?
Yes, he has. I was going to bring that up next since we're done with that question. So let's see. That part. He said got cut off, lost track. So his goes at strange codes. All right, some men have strange codes of honor, may have interest in someone, but close friends show interest or dates causes me to back off. I have been accused by women that I took their choice away. It has caused me some concern. Two views seem to challenge my thinking.
Can you go back to the previous comment? Yeah. I was trying to get my cat to not chew on that cord again.
No, good call.
Was there a comment before this as well?
Yeah, so some men have strange codes of honor. He gave up interest in dating but it's kind of like, so he may have interest in someone, but if a close friend shows interest or dates cause him to back off. And he's been accused by women that he took their choice away because he backed off, I suppose. And they wanted to...
I get you.
I mean, that's how free agency works.
Right. If you were making a choice, then and your choice is no, then their choice doesn't matter. Like that's what boundaries are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. All right.
Yep.
Wonder Woman, I want to boink you. No.
No.
My choice away.
No.
Where's my agency?
My choice.
I'm sorry. Men have free will too. Next question we have is, how might focusing on body count distract from more meaningful questions about intimacy, safety, or readiness? Let's get into the meat of this issue right here.
Well, geez, it just puts the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Absolutely. I agree.
It's just a distraction from things that actually matter.
Yeah, concur.
Yeah, I think, like, I mean, I guess some people value that stuff, but in terms of what actually matters and what's going to make the difference, like, I feel like, in my experience, intimacy, like emotional intimacy with someone, makes that sexual intimacy so much greater. And you can have that with low or high body counts, right? If you are able to develop that kind of emotional intimacy with somebody or with a lot of people, it's still going to make a big difference, more so than, you know, whatever the quote unquote number is.
Fair.
Yeah. It's safety and readiness. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because safety wise, I'm assuming that means what, STI safety? Maybe.
I think not just sexual safety, but emotional safety as well. Like, you know, for me, like feeling safe in a man's arms, just to be able to feel like I can be myself around him, and I don't have to hide any parts of myself. That's a big thing.
Yeah, that's nice. And by readiness, do you mean just like
ready
what?
Ready to have the sexual encounters? Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I think that there's an emotional component to that. Like, are you emotionally ready to take that leap? You know, there's some people that, you know, might want to take into consideration, especially if you're like, you know, not using any kind of protection like condoms, birth control, whatever. Are you ready and prepared for whatever outcome may come from that, baby, potentially? You know, that's a big deal. Like, how are you going to handle that?
Yeah, fair point.
I'd like to bring conversation back to the word safety. Because we're talking about like pregnancy safety or STD safety or emotional safety.
Personal safety.
Sexual, like physical safety.
Physical safety, yeah.
That, you know, if someone if it admits to having a high body count, or if they admit to having a high body count, or if the perception is that they have a high body count, other people could forcibly take advantage of that, saying, oh, well, they enjoy this, so I'm going to force myself on them.
Right. Absolutely. That's definitely happens. And then there's also the assumption of, if you have a high body count, you're probably assuming that you're not being safe in all of those situations. So you probably are diseased, right? So, you know, you better get tested beforehand. I mean, you should
Which
anyway. You should anyway. You should anyway.
Actually, this is really interesting. Like, just to go back on Mike's point, there was a story a friend of mine told me a long time ago, but it really stuck with me. He was saying that his drink got spiked at a bar. When he woke up, he was in bed with this girl that he didn't know, and like there was, and then like basically when he spoke to us afterwards, he said that he felt really violated because apparently when he spoke to her about it, he said like, I don't remember a thing, and she was like saying, well, you were hard already, so I'm assuming you were good to go. And he was like, no. And I remember he said that, and all of us were literally at the pub just having our breakfast, and we were like, what the? It blew our mind, because to be fair, we didn't even think of that.
Yeah. So men can absolutely be violated in those kinds of situations, and then find it harder to speak up about it because there's that assumption of, oh, he's always ready to go, especially if he's hard, he must be turned on and wanting to do it. No, that doesn't. Like, you can be aroused and not actually want to do anything with that.
I mean, how many times have like, I'm sure like someone's woken up with a bit of a chubby, and like, guys, that doesn't mean that I want to get jumped on. It's just like biology, pretty much.
Well, if you go back to that whole adage of like consent is like tea, you're not gonna force. Or rather, it's ridiculous to force someone to drink tea when they don't want to drink tea. And kind of using that whole analogy of, I might want tea, but I'm not going to have tea because I know the caffeine content is going to have effects on me later that's not going to be good for me. So I want tea, but I'm going to abstain from tea.
Yes, I have self-control.
My daily struggle with soda. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
I so infrequently drink soda. I've like weaned myself off of it. Actually, the thing that got me to stop drinking soda the thing that got me to stop drinking Coke was getting braces as a teenager, because I wasn't allowed to drink soda at all with braces because it would just stain my teeth. Yeah. And so after 2 years of braces, when I tried Coke again afterwards, I'm like, this is revolting. How did I ever like this? And so I never even tried it ever again after that. Other sodas I still like, but like, I know it's not healthy, so I never buy it, never keep it in the house.
Like Sprite and root beer or whatever.
I'm not a root beer person. Sprite, Fanta are the ones that I will drink. American Mountain Dew is disgusting, but Mountain Dew in other countries is all right.
Yeah, vanilla Coke is my kryptonite for sure.
Okay. All right, my dad's left another few comments, so I'll bring those up.
Where did Veritas go? Is he still?
No, I think he disappeared. It says I don't know. Restream says we have 1 viewer right now. YouTube says we have 4.
Ooh.
Maybe it's somewhere in between. All right. My dad says, you got it. Boundary is male friendship. Boundary is male friendship is the overriding value.
Bros before hoes.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. He says, I know I often met the girls first. One couple is still married. In fact, 3 couples that way after I stopped dating. Looking at my own marriage, they ended up better off in my mind. Oh,
I mean, to be fair, every couple's different.
He's saying that he was a bad partner, so it was a good thing that they ended up with other people. I'm assuming that's what he means by that. All right.
That's an interesting perception. Like, you were a bad partner, they were a bad partner. It doesn't matter because because you ultimately didn't end up with that person. They weren't your person. And you eventually found your person. So,
actually, this is really interesting. Have either of you two watched La La Land?
Yeah.
And I wasn't a fan of it.
Yeah, the ending is really was something I found very poignant. Was that even though our two leads many years later, spoiler alert anyone, many years later they serendipitously kind of meet, and just because they're not together doesn't mean that their lives don't have meaning, that they're not happy. You know, like they see each other, they smile, they exchange a nod, and then that's it. And I thought, you know, in some ways that's beautiful.
Yeah. This is reminding me that I was going to talk about a rom-com that I rewatched recently, which was definitely Maybe. And I was going to bring this up because what I was talking about in the beginning about how I have not had a new sexual partner since 2016. That was part of my stand-up thing that I was doing, and that being that has led to me only hooking up with exes in that time. I'm like, definitely Maybe is so similar to that, because Ryan Reynolds is telling the story about these women from his past, and he connected them with them multiple times in some cases. So yeah. But anyway,
you never go back. Never go back.
Why not? It's like, if I trust the people and they ended on terms that were not terrible, I mean, I would never go back to my ex-husband, but if other situations things work out in a way that makes sense, then I don't see there being a problem with it. My dad said yes. I did interpret his comment.
Good.
All right. Next question. Which is somewhat similar to the last one, but here we go. What would a healthier conversation around sexual history sound like? One rooted in curiosity, consent, or care?
Huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
think it's really interesting, because I think the older we get, the more we mature. It actually starts off that way. It starts off as people.
Wait, we don't Benjamin Button emotionally?
Yeah, who would have guessed? The fact is, yeah, I mean, it starts off as curious, then it goes on to consent, and then when you're older, it's about caring about the person, isn't it? So I wouldn't know about any kind of majority of conversations usually have all three. They can, obviously, depending on the situation, but it does tend to go on a slope to either the more mature or the more partners you have.
I think something that would be worth discussing for all of those aspects, the curiosity, consent, and care, is traumatic sexual history. And that's not something you can touch on right immediately when you start dating someone, but I do think it's something that needs to be addressed at some point in a relationship, especially if it gets serious, because if you've had a traumatic sexual history, then that's going to impact how you are in that relationship, because they might do something that triggers you from your memory from this other traumatic past, and hopefully your partner cares enough to not want to give you that kind of experience, right? But if you don't have that conversation and you're just triggered, and then your partner might be think that they did something wrong, and you're triggered by them rather than something from your past, and they'll take it personally when it might not actually be about them at all. So I think that's something that really needs to be addressed in a significant relationship.
For sure.
Well, also, there's this question presupposes the idea, if not body count, then what? But if
meaning what kind of things you're into?
No, well, if you're not going to
discuss body count,
it presupposes the idea that a conversation around sexual history is important. And I'm not saying it's not, because it is. So if it is important, the way to do it is through talking body count. It's almost like that's the default. But if you don't want to talk body count, what is a healthier conversation to do this? So it's still kind of using body count as a default a little bit, just inherently, even though it doesn't say it. What's a healthier conversation? Using body count as the default. Whether it's healthy or not, it's still saying this is the way that it's done.
Well, Mike, I mean, I did address ChatGPT specifically with the topic for the live stream is body count mentality, so of course it was going to be in play.
This is not a reflection on you. This question, which is programmed by a computer who is programmed by a human being, or billions of human beings, rather, this is the question that AI has crafted to reflect humanity in a way that we can relate to it. And if that's a computer's interpretation of how we perceive our own conversations, then it is still a reflection of body count being a default, right? So it's interesting that that's the...
I guess because when you think, not them being general, but when somebody thinks sexual history, a lot of people might automatically perceive that to mean, okay, who are all the people that I have been with sexually?
Yes, but that doesn't work for all couples.
Some people might not want to know because they'll be jealous. I've definitely had that experience.
Of course. And it just gets weird and awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
So in terms of curiosity, consent, or care, one that's rooted, well, obviously it needs to be rooted in care. Obviously it needs to be rooted in consent. And obviously it needs to be rooted in curiosity, because if it weren't, there's no
talking about it.
Discussion. Yeah. So I think that it needs to revolve around likes and dislikes. What are you comfortable with? What are you uncomfortable with? As opposed to, hey, tell me about your experience. What do you want?
Be very descriptive of your most intimate sexual encounter that you've ever had. I want to make sure that I imitate that for you, because otherwise I'll be jealous.
Well, I mean, curiosity is what sparks everything 99.9% of the time. So
it's true. So, ask questions like, what turns you on? What turns you off? What are some avenues? How do you want me to talk to you? I would like for you to talk to me like this. I like it when you touch me this way. I like it when you kiss me there. So I don't appreciate it when you engage it in this kind of a way, right? And I think those are all, like, we need to create boundaries. We need to normalize that conversation and allow people, and like you said, Dominica, sexual trauma is a massive component to this that a lot of people just aren't comfortable talking about. And
no, it's so hard. It's really hard, because a lot of people also, it's not just about it being challenging to talk about, it's also being really challenging to listen to as well.
Oh yeah. And there needs to be understanding and compassion in that regard for the person receiving this information for the first time. And it also, and I cannot underscore or underline or stress this enough, but you need to be patient. You have to be patient, because, and let me go back to the PTSD dog being scared of dogs analogy, right? If someone is scared of dogs and they don't know why they're scared of dogs, they're just scared of dogs, and their best friend looks at them and says, what's wrong with a dog? This is a cute little poochie. and you pet the dog and you pick it up and it licks your face and it's a wonderful experience. But your friend is terrified of the dog. And then after therapy or after whatever it is that they need to do, they remember, oh, I was bit by a dog when I was 5 years old. That's why I'm scared of dogs.
Yeah.
Right?
And the same thing can happen in sexual history. You might not remember why you might be triggered by a particular thing, but it's there. Yeah, and I get it.
So, I mean, you have to allow for patience. You have to allow for compassion. If somebody doesn't like the way that you're kissing them, stop. Just because you're enjoying it doesn't mean they're enjoying it. And if they were enjoying it, doesn't mean that they're still enjoying it.
Right.
So, it's no one's fault. Actually, it's the fault of the aggressor from a long time ago. But in this scenario, it's no one's fault. People are who they are. They've got the baggage that they have. And shove your judgmental bullshit down the water drain, because it has no place in the bedroom.
Yeah. I think with the trauma history conversation part, what strikes me the most is what is necessary to have that conversation. Kind of takes us back to the last question around safety. Like when you have emotional safety in the relationship, that is the time where it's easier to have that. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's easier to have those conversations around that history. All right, my dad has left some more comments for us here.
Yay, Frank. What have you got?
He says, crushes are easily misjudged as soulmates when really they are there in one's life for very different reasons, perhaps a different kind of function than romantic.
We hear you, Frank. Yep.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of crushes that have never gone anywhere. He's pointing at yourself, Mike.
Well, I actually had this interesting idea. A soulmate in someone's life doesn't have to be romantic. A soulmate could just be someone who is your person. And for example, for me, my best friend, Olivier, he and I have been best friends since we were 13. I was the best man at his wedding, and we're homies for life. We've never had a single argument, And I remember I would always tell him, dude, you're my soulmate. And he's like, yeah, bro, me too. You are my soulmate too. And and it's you have that.
Olivier, the Chinese guy with a French accent.
Yeah. You know. I know. And the drunker he gets, the more French he sounds. And I remember it's just that thing is that you have that person. Yeah.
I don't know that I knew that you guys came out to One Mic Stand stuff together and you knew each other beforehand. Maybe I did. I don't know. Good to know.
Open mic was called One Mic Stand?
Yeah.
That's a great name.
I know, right?
That is a great name.
The comedy night is not an ongoing weekly open mic anymore, but the brand is still ongoing, is being used for shows. And that is all I'm going to say about that. All right. Next comment from my dad. That brings up, what is a soulmate? Is it really attraction for sexual chemistry, some people's understanding, or has it a very different calling?
As I said, for me, I think soulmate is just that person. It doesn't have to be sexual. It doesn't have to be romantic, even. It can just be
someone who has the ability to impact and change your life, even if it's not for the long term. Then it's still,
someone who knows the worst thing about you, and it's okay. Yeah.
Second part of your dad's question, is it really attraction for sexual chemistry? Some people's understanding. Or has it a very different calling? I don't think. Now, this is where I am today. I could change my opinion tomorrow or in 20 years or never. But I really don't think sexual chemistry should be taken into consideration when we're talking about soulmates.
I agree.
Soulmate is
it's the soul part.
It's the soul. Yeah. There's a deeper connection. And if you really genuinely, truly care about this person, the sexual component will match where they're at and they will match where you're at.
Yeah.
That I feel like the sexual part comes secondary or tertiary or somewhere down the road.
Yeah. Do you care more about that person's emotional and mental health, and even like physical health and stuff, more so than, getting your rocks off with them?
How much do you sacrifice? And we talk about sacrifice as like as a struggle, right? It's a big struggle. Oh, I'm sacrificing my entire weekend with my friends to go hang out, blah, 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 like whatever, right? Like we look at that as like, oh, it's a sacrifice. But a sacrifice can be something as simple as, I could spend this 5 minutes scrolling through TikTok while on the toilet. Or I could speed up the process and go out to the kitchen and just unload the dishwasher. Same amount of time, Like sacrifice takes all different forms. How much service are you willing to put into the relationship because to take care of that person and to show them I'm doing this because I want you, not because I love you, but because I want you to be less burdened with these other things.
Yeah, you said something really interesting there, Mike. You said it's not sacrifice.
Being on the toilet?
No, close. It's not sacrifice, it's service.
Service.
Yeah. But speaking of the toilet thing, that's a good segue to my dad's next comments. Who says shifting
there we go.
Even being comfortable going to the toilet in front of other is a trust issue for some, perhaps many. This is partly what develops intimacy over time. I agree. Most people that I've been with, I would not be comfortable going to the toilet in front of them. In fact, I think my ex-husband is probably the only person that I have done that with. But a thought that comes to mind for me about this that I don't know, it was kind of surprising for me was my most recent ex, who I refer to as Lee on the stream. I remember
who?
being.
You've never mentioned me. Not once.
I remember
I'm such a bitch.
I know, right? I remember being really curious, but not asking him anything about it because it didn't impact me one way or the other. But I noticed that he didn't close the door all the way when he went to the bathroom. Whereas I did. No, I didn't have an issue with it, but I was curious and I wondered why and never asked him.
That is weird. That is a bit weird.
Because I was definitely, I'm closing the door, I'm locking it.
I feel like I did that when I was a kid. I did that when I was a kid, but I don't know. I don't know where the switch over to closed and locked. Where did that?
I think maybe when you're a kid, it doesn't really cross your mind until you're older. That's when the idea of privacy and shame comes into it.
Right. Yeah. I don't want anyone walking in on me.
Yeah, I remember being a kid and just literally running around the house, either butt naked or just in my underwear with random people in the house, and they're like, "Put some clothes on." I'm like, and then I turned 30. So unfortunately, until then.
Well, it's an interesting thing in terms of like bathroom time, right? Because if you look at was it the Colosseum in Rome? Like the public toilets they were just like
Anyone
public
could
toilets, right? Yeah, there were no doors, no divisions. You just went in. It was like social time. Everyone goes in, farts, poops, makes the sounds.
Wow.
You wipe your butt.
Mm-hmm.
You high five the person next to you. Like it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a big deal. It not only was it not a big deal, it wasn't a deal. It just was.
Everyone had to do it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, society is interesting in how we've like decided
evolved to make it more private. Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it's more about like maybe I'd be more comfortable with it if it was just like number one, But I don't know, the other end, the under end of things is not something that like, I don't, and it's like, I'm like, what if it stings? What if like, it's, there's different states that it can be in. And it's like, I don't
that's the lens that we're all viewing it through now.
Yeah.
But also, like, if it was just the cultural norm of
that's not what I'm talking about. Though I'm like, this is why I like close the door now, right? I'm like, I might feel like it's okay for the front end to be exposed, but the back end, like, that's a whole other story. And unless it's that really you have that trust and intimacy with someone that like you can trust that they would look after you when you're incredibly sick and you need someone to take care of you when you have anxiety.
You know what's really funny though when you go back and look at the metrics, this is probably the part that'll get the most views.
Maybe we'll see. Look, the topic for this week has clearly struck a lot of people because right now we have 83 views, but people haven't stuck around for it.
Wow!
I know. Awesome. So I had the right title. But people are not interested to sticking around.
It's because I didn't start the fart noises.
There you
That's
go.
what we should have done. Yeah.
Straight off the gate.
Yeah.
Where were we?
Body count.
Anyway, okay. My dad has another couple of comments for us here. I only have one more question for ChatGPT anyway, so. Back to soulmates, my dad says, perhaps we have several also serving different soul tasks. I agree with that. I don't think there's a lot of people believe in the one and only. And I think that's it's very limiting to believe that.
I'm not so sure I understand the question.
Understand having different soulmates that serve different soul tasks. Different life lessons.
Serving different soul tasks.
I feel that in my mind, I'm seeing it as like different life lessons that you're learned with different people. They teach you different things about yourself or about the world.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's the point of having different experiences with different people, isn't it, to expand your social circle?
Exactly.
How are you going to improve yourself if not for being challenged?
Yeah,
exactly.
So then he also says, soul isn't always understood by most humans because it is too easy to run down rather than engage the energy.
Fair.
Next.
Next question. All right, we have one more. We have one more question from ChatGPT, and this was by he was like, ChatGPT was like, do you want any like other types of questions, like a humorous one per se? And I was like, yeah, give me some humorous questions. I'm curious what you come up to with. Most of his humorous questions were like, nah, I didn't like that one. But this is the one I decided to pick for the humorous question. What would happen if people had to list their body counts on dating profiles would anyone survive the apps?
Yeah. I mean, at some point after a while, if they had to list it, I think at that point it'll just become a random statistic. I think at first people would be like, but then after a while it'll just be like, yeah.
So you feel like that would change people's tune about body count then?
I think so, because if everyone had that at some point, and to be fair, and if they had this body count, but also they also similarly had to list, like, we're STD free, there's blah, 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 blah. After a while, I don't think it would matter per se. I think maybe if one person put on the dating, the body count as like 0, for example, that might be interesting. That might be. I'm not going to let that would be, but compared to someone who had 12 or 100, I don't think that would matter.
This is also under the assumption that we're all telling the truth.
Right, exactly. And my assumption is people would probably lie on that question. If they had to answer that question, I don't know that they would tell the truth.
Yeah, fair.
That would be very interesting.
Like, how would you be able to verify it? Like, we have to ask every single one of your partners to make sure that you're telling the truth.
Yeah, good luck with that.
What if we started our own dating app called Body Count, and it's just a hooking up app, and your profile has your picture, whatever picture you want to present to the world, like a really brief biography of yourself, and then your body count. And it's the very basic profile, and it's only for hooking up. How would people inflate their numbers or deflate their numbers so they could get maximum results?
I feel like
if
it was an app specifically for hooking up only, people would probably inflate their numbers. Or at least make it seem like they had a decent amount of experience with multiple partners, because that would make it seem like they are higher value.
Or conversely, if they have lower numbers, that would mean that they're pure or they're untouched and they're willing to let.
Yeah, which could be more attractive to some people,
even as a male. Like, I'm sure if you see a young guy and he's like, I've only had 3 women, and a woman in her. Who's had like 10 plus guys, she'll be like, oh, jackpot. So.
Wait, I did like once or twice stand up about this as well. Like the idea of, purity for like landing a virgin for a man is very different than the assumption of what it's like for it's not a woman's dream to land a virgin.
No, absolutely.
So
we barely even know what we're doing now, so let alone that.
But anyway, I don't want to go into too much detail about that. But so you were talking about for lowering numbers for men, and I feel like the reverse is true also for women in this kind of situation. A woman could put a higher amount specifically for an app like this, because if it's just for hooking up, it shows how easy she is. Well, in a way, right? It's like, great, I'm gonna get the
guys would be impressed because like, oh, she's probably got a lot of experience. She can teach me something.
Yeah, I can see that too.
Or down a clown.
Yeah.
All right, we done with that question?
Yeah.
All right, my dad has a couple more chat comments, I think. Let me see. It says, in a trip to Bali, because houses don't have toilets in back village houses, they go out their front door and do it in a ditch along the side of the road.
Lovely.
I feel like that is
I doubt that is still true.
No, well, I was going to say, I don't think that is restricted to Bali. I think that is a common practice in a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
India being one.
I just got back from there, so yeah, I can concur. Yeah.
I don't know that ditches were necessarily, there was just more wherever they felt like on the side of the road. It didn't have to be a ditch. From my experience, that was the case.
But yeah, that would be interesting to kind of get back to that. Now, I would have to, my neuroses would prevent me from engaging because of the sanitation or lack thereof that is associated with something like that. But like, I do think that would be an interesting experiment to regress in that regard.
Yeah, interesting experiment that I'm not interested in partaking
Not today, Satan. Not today.
All right, my dad also says, in some respects, body count is cultural. Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, I feel like.
No.
Okay, this is more of a question for Shard. Do you feel like this body count mentality for men, it being more impressive with higher body counts, still rings true in Malaysia the same as it does in Western countries? And I ask, before you answer, I ask this because in my experience being there, I didn't feel like a higher number of sexual partners for men was valued as highly as it is in the West.
I concur. It's not as high per se, but it's still valued because it shows that, number one, like, you're successful, you're social, and but yeah, I think like as things kind of go forward in time, it's becoming less so important. Like, for example, I remember when I was a teenager, and I think I was 19. One of my male friends was like, yeah, I'm a virgin. He was in his late 20s. We were like, blah, blah. But like nowadays, if that happens, someone says something similar, we'd be like, dude, that's awesome, good for you. So it's a different mindset. But yeah, I think more so it's definitely a thing for the guys here. I think with women, in my experience, I think I mean, not to say that slut shaming doesn't happen. I'm sure it still does, very much so. But it's not such a big deal. Beforehand, it'd be like, oh my god, that girl's a slut. But like nowadays, it'd be like, oh, she's up for a good time. Maybe I can recommend a friend to go, like, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Also, kind of getting back to the whole like group pooping in mass in public.
You're obsessed with this now, Blake.
I'm a boy. I do think that there are specific cultures around the world where it's not a big deal.
No.
It like, oh, you have a body count? Like it's not even talked about. Like everybody just
does it, yeah.
And it's fine. And there's no judgment. I'm not going to say there's no judgment. I'm looking at you, France, but like
France.
What about Italy?
American. Hey, you French man.
France.
Anyway, but like, I've never lived in France. I've been to Paris a handful of times, but I can't really partake or like speak to their cultural experience. But the perception of French culture, at least from an American perspective, is like you just have sex, and it's fine. Isn't there like there's some kind of, I don't know if this is offensive or not, but there's some kind of like a running joke of like, oh man, I can't even craft the setup, but it's something to the effect of like, every man has a mistress in France. And of course, if you are French and you're watching this and you take offense, my apologies. I mean no offense. It's just the perception of American culture versus French culture, that the perception is that it's not a big deal to be intimate.
Yeah. definitely cultural differences. I think also media plays a big part in that. Like Hollywood films definitely plays up this whole like body count type of mentality, and plays into the, you know, men gotta have more partners, and you know, women have to be more pure, all that kind of thing. Hollywood definitely plays a big part into how it influences the culture here and anywhere that consumes Hollywood, right, as well. Whereas like France, for example, they have their own films, you know, in French. So, and their films are a lot more expressive in that kind of way. Not that I've seen a huge amount, but from the ones that I know about, like it's, you know, a lot more sexually free, I guess, in the films that they make.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that throughout history the French have come from a puritanical society, whereas Americans have.
Because of the British. Because they have, for sure. Yeah, that probably makes a huge difference. Yeah.
So while having a body count may be taboo in some societies, in some cultures, or the lack of having a body count may be taboo in some cultures, in others, it's not. There's nothing taboo about high or low.
Yeah.
It's just
you
just live your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, my dad has another couple of comments here. We have, there was in the early days a hookup app existed. I don't remember its name, but the photos showed everything. Is there really a hookup app that you could see, I'm guessing, body parts?
Are we not discussing every hookup app ever?
Well, you wouldn't have it in your I'm assuming this means it's in the profiles.
Oh,
you
maybe.
can have them,
Maybe.
and I'm not aware of any that's
Or people
the
just openly
case.
sharing them. I don't know.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, FetLife is a website that you can post that kind of thing to, but other than that, I'm not aware of any.
What is the straight version of Grindr?
What is Tinder? Isn't it
Tinder?
Okay.
In the early days of Tinder, I remember people. I don't remember like blatant nudity, but very revealing imagery.
Okay.
Didn't leave a lot to the imagination.
I have never used Tinder. Pretty sure I've never downloaded the app and never gotten a profile. I've had profile on other dating apps, but Tinder has not been one. Just the impression that I got from its reputation of being a hookup app. I'm almost like, that's not what I'm looking for. I don't want just a hookup. So I never used that one. All right. Then my dad also says, in some cases, it is even connected to success with other racial types, perhaps tribal. Then there is Romeo and Juliet going for what is banned.
You always want what you can't have.
Yeah. Queen Victoria influenced the Puritan ethic later. Yeah.
There it is.
Interesting.
The whole Puritans. That was the whole movement in England. Puritans.
And still around today.
Yeah. All right, I think we're done with our conversation. Like we stuck to just over 2 hours. That's what we try to aim for. So I'm glad we managed to stick to that tonight, and still had some good audience conversation as well.
I apologize for ducking out so often today.
You have things going on. It's fine. You are still here and contributing to the conversation. Okay, my dad added that the app was a very swinger-focused app.
Okay. Good to know, Frank. Good to know.
There's a off-topic, but slightly tangential. There is a mini golf place here in the city called Swingers.
Have you been?
Yes, and it's really fun.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, but it's just mini golf. They just use the name swingers as like a shocking.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. That's
Yeah, swingers. Some couples just going like.
The mini golf place that I know about in the area, I think they've got 2 locations now, is Subpar Miniature Golf.
Nice.
Oh, that's a terrible name.
I know.
It's a terrible name. You're selling yourself so short.
Yeah.
You should call it over par.
Or at least a hole in one.
Yeah.
They're trying to what's the word? Like self-deprecation humor.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, that's the end of the stream tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have watched after the fact, thank you so much for watching all the way through. We had, according to YouTube, 95 people tuned in tonight.
No way.
For even briefly, however many it was.
That's awesome.
So I need to have more good SEO titles to draw people in. Clearly, I picked a good topic. We do this pretty much every week. So if you're not already subscribed to the channel, then you'll find out when we are live next. Especially if you hit the notification bell for all of our live streams, you can find out when we will be live. Follow me on all of the social medias. The same username at Dominica Creates. Download the links are in the description of the video. I believe, and and I'll add the link to the video of my stand-up that inspired this topic for the stream this week. So thank you so much, and until next time, bye.